Hi, Sabrina. Welcome to the Happy Healthy Caregiver podcast.
Hi, Elizabeth. I'm happy to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Yes, well, we always kick off the show with a little bit of like good stuff. Uh, you know, uh, we talk about a lot of heavy stuff. I like to always kind of kick off the show on a positive note. So these are some things that have spoken to me over the years that I've collected in the Happy Healthy Caregiver jar, and I wanted to get your thoughts on this one, Sabrina. It
Awesome.
says, "Sometimes good things fall apart, so better things can fall together." And Marilyn Monroe said that. So sometimes good things fall apart, so better things can fall together.
Oh, it's funny. That is so, yeah, that's a serious caregiver quote there.
Well, you don't know. Sometimes like you're living in the mess and you're trying to like navigate through the murkiness and you're like, why is this happening to me or happening to us? And it's not, I think, until hindsight later that you're like, oh,
Yeah,
it wasn't all bad.
yeah.
So
Well, and also, I think about like with things like that, I think about like I do, well, I'm not doing it now, but for a long time in my life, I did a lot of gardening. And I think about like compost. Like you
yeah,
need, like some of the
you
best
need
things you
garbage.
could yeah, is like some of the best things you eat come from the things that you thought were really good that you forgot about in the fridge that you had to compost because you
Mm.
didn't want to waste it. That it fed all of the things that are beautiful today.
And it smelled disgusting in the process.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's so
yeah,
true. I love that. I love that visual, I think is important because I can just and caregiving kind of is like that. And I feel like the diamonds are there if we look for them
yeah.
and extract them. And I'd love to for you to share, Sabrina, a little bit about your caregiving story. Like share a summary of what it's been like for you as a care partner.
Well, I'll go a little bit before so I can kind of set the scene for it, but really quick. In 2009, I started a bath and body care company with a friend of mine. And I mean, it blew up. Like we did not expect it to do what it did. It went from like, oh, here's a little project in our garage to I live in my business and I almost never see my wife. And like we're in every state in the country and exporting to 5 countries and everything's made by hand. It was insane. And
It's a
it
good
was,
problem. Good problems. Yeah.
but I was also totally unprepared for how it like took me out of my life and my relationship.
Mm.
And this was supposed to be like a side hobby, side hustle thing that just took over. So what happened in 2014 is Christmas season starting October, I would just be living at my business because like we had 24-hour shifts and I managed everything. So there'd be sometimes, of course, all the holidays, which are the fun times to see people, where I wouldn't see her sometimes for weeks at a time. And so it was really hard and really shocking to go from that style of life to, I've been having this like thing that I think might be an ear infection since November. I've had a little bit of like a ringing in my ear problem. Like, we're wellness practitioners, we're massage therapists, right? Like,
Mm-hmm.
I didn't plan on going to make soap for my living. So, like, we go to our acupuncturist, we take the herbs, we do all the things, we do all the stuff that we do, and it's not getting better. It's not getting better. And I finally check in with her again after like coming off my holiday season and realized she's had this issue all through the holidays while I've been gone.
Mm.
And and I'm like, okay, so we need to really get that looked at. That's way too long. So I take her to a GP and he's like, yeah, it's been a long time. We'll do a couple of things, like, just rule some stuff out. And but I want you to go get an MRI just to be sure, right? Just because, it is a long time and I want to rule out any neurologic stuff. And I cannot tell you how terrifying it is to have the MRI tech come out of there and go with the disc, go, you need to hand deliver this now, call your doctor.
Like
We're
it
like,
went,
that's,
it escalated quickly.
yeah, we thought it was an ear infection. No, it was a massive brain tumor
Mm.
that was sitting on the nerve in her ear. So the ear stuff never went away. She has vertigo, it just never went away. But we went from I am 100% committed to making this business work so we can get it to the point where we can sell it. And I've got a few years left on that project to I'm now 100% committed to raising money to pay for brain surgery because we, of course, had catastrophic insurance because we had been healthy our entire lives and never had any, like, never ever had any need to go to a regular doctor. It's a complete shift in perspective and all of these
Right.
things we did, and I between myself and our group of friends, we had to raise $160,000 in 2 weeks
Wow.
because our insurance did not cover the brain surgery.
What's the point of having catastrophic insurance if it doesn't cover a
Well, if we wanted
catastrophe?
to go to a hospital where they didn't have a doctor who'd done it recently,
Oh,
we could do that. And I feel like you shouldn't bargain shop for brain surgeons.
no, you probably shouldn't
I
do
just,
that.
I'm like, I feel like when you're messing around in your brain, you should know what you're doing. So
Yes.
we found a surgeon that was competent for doing that. I'm glad we did that. She was amazing. The brain surgery went really well. I was still in denial about the idea that it was cancer. I was hoping that it was just going to be something that was like, maybe this is just a weird, slow growing anomaly thing that we just didn't know anything about. And then we went right into, okay, so we have to do really serious, aggressive treatment because my wife is a delicate flower who does whatever she wants.
What are you? If she's the delicate flower, what are you, Sabrina?
I think I'm a Leo. I think I'm probably the sun that like helps her grow that way.
Yeah.
But good God, she's like she made her own special type of cancer. They're still studying her
Oh, wow.
10
10
years
years.
later.
It's been 10 years.
Mhm.
Wow.
She's not officially in remission because they couldn't remove all of the tumor. So they will be watching and studying her. And also because she regrew they were benign tumors. She grew some new nerve tumors, which is common with radiation. They're secondary tumors
Mm.
after 7 years or so after radiation are really common. But she grew, of course, something they were not looking for and did not expect and missed the first couple of scans because they were like at the very, very bottom of her spine beyond where it's normal for them to grow. She just does her own thing. She's going to do it the way she wants to do it. So they removed the tumor. We did radiation. She reacted very poorly to radiation because she's a delicate little pansy.
She must not mind you calling her those
Oh
things.
no,
Yeah,
no.
yeah. She owns it.
I have a big pansy tattoo because
Oh,
she's
there
like,
you go.
yeah,
Oh,
no, she knows. She's like, yes, okay. She's loud and she's Italian and she seems like she would be like rough and tumble about everything, but she's the most delicate pansy in the
oh.
world. So no, she's fine with that. She knows. Like she is very, very, very delicate. Like a normal dose of medication is often too much for her. A normal dose of radiation, the normal lowest end of treatment protocol nearly killed her for the radiation. I finally had to, like, I was fairly certain she was dying when I signed an AMA to take her home. I was like,
Mm.
she's not going to die in the hospital. We can't continue doing this. I'm just going to take her home. We're done. It was really bad. She went from like walking into radiation with a whole group of people who were doing a similar protocol. And she's the only one who was being wheeled in a hospital bed within a couple weeks.
How does that change your
So
role as a care partner? Like, you know her, you've got the
yeah,
tattoo. Like,
yeah.
how do you explain that to people that like when you're advocating?
Well, it's really America's such a weird thing because for-profit medicine, and this is like, I know this is like it's a challenging road to navigate because I feel like people who go into medicine generally go into medicine because they want to help people and they want to heal people. And the problem with for-profit medicine is that decisions are made based on about the financial results, and it's all about avoiding being sued. And because she's so delicate, the treatment parameters are defined on the norm, not on the
Mm.
ends of the bell curve. And it means that her doctors were really like hobbled in being able to alter it. They did the least they could do, and it was still way too much. And they couldn't say this is not a good idea because you have to do the standard of care or you put yourself at risk for being sued.
Mm.
And so they're in a position of, we have these kind of weird coded conversations of like, she's really not reacting well to this. And they can't say, if I had the room, I would cut this, or we would do less, or we would space it out longer because there's a standard of care
Mm-hmm.
that is, if you take us to court because she died, if we did the standard of care, even if it was the radiation that killed her,
You're
we're free of
covered.
liability because we followed the standard of care. And so there's not the freedom with the doctors to say this particular patient doesn't meet the parameters for standard of care. And it means that these people who, I mean, our doctors are amazing. They're beautiful people. They've stuck with us and been with us through all of this, and they have done their very best to help us navigate everything. I feel like we made some really good choices with our care providers. It's just that the system that we're in, it hobbles everyone in the care.
Right. Right. And you're also like, I feel like you've got a little bit with your massage therapy and things like that, and love of nature, and like a little bit of a holistic approach to
Oh
things. So
yeah.
how did y'all balance that? Like, oh no, we've got a brain tumor that can't be that needs beyond this, but like you're way out of your comfort zone, I'm
That was a
thinking.
really hard process, especially, and I don't know, I grew up my family has a long history of cancer. Okay, so I really, if I'm being completely honest, I thought I was going to be the person who ended up with cancer of some kind because everybody in my family has cancer of some kind, right? It's
Mm,
just a thing. Like I started my colonoscopies really young because I'm like, colon cancer's gotten most of the women in my family as they age. We're not going to do that, right?
right.
So I have a balance with the like Western and like the holistic concepts. I feel like if my arm is broken, I want the Western medicine to set it, but I'm going to do all the things that'll help it heal faster, right? That's my approach in
Right.
general. So we try to stay really balanced with that. But God, our community had such a hard time in a lot of ways. Like we had a lot of people who you really see the disconnect in particular in the US, the disconnect between the idea of aging and dying, the disconnect and the avoidance of illness in our culture. And there's this really weird thing in American culture in particular where we really try to pretend if we do all the right things, you'll never get sick. And it's this magical thinking, right? Like our systems are built to break down eventually. We're not going to
Right.
live forever. We can do as much as we can do to do all the right things, and you can still have a problem,
Right.
right? There's not a magical miracle thing. Like I know I have some friends who in the last few months has passed away. They randomly had strokes.
So, yeah, I'm
And
sorry.
they're, outside nature, hiking, healthy, eating all the right things, doing all the right things. It was their time.
Yeah.
And I grew up in a large family that had a lot of people who were aging when I was very young. So the idea of dying is, well, it has all the normal, like terrifying, like I don't want to do that things, but I know that I'm
Yeah.
going to have to. It's not outside my experience. And so I was really shocked at the lesson of, wow, there's some crazy denial in particular in the wellness industry in our culture around like, no, if you just do this magical thing, you won't ever have to get sick. Like, no, like if we get sick, the goal is to like have the best
Yeah.
experience
You
we can.
can mitigate, maybe. You can
Right.
maybe be a person who's going to bounce back, hopefully, but yeah, you
Right.
can.
But also that becomes ableist, right?
Mm,
Because then it's we are blaming the person who's sick because they didn't do the right thing.
mm.
I don't have that experience, so you must have done something wrong. It becomes this really like that was a really interesting experience for us because you know you never go back to being completely normal after having a massive brain tumor removed from your head. There is always going to be stuff she is going to deal with. There is always going to be things we have to mitigate. There's always going to be some form of caregiving that has to happen in our life. This is just our life is completely and profoundly changed. And that is what it is. I was thinking about it today as like on the way to work, it's like there's so many people who thought we would just be done with it. Like she'd be over it. It's been 10 years. She should be
Yeah.
done, right? And I'm like,
People think
no.
that way about grief too. It's like, no, you just kind of figure out how to like, how it's a part of you and how you can navigate
Yeah,
it. And yeah,
yeah. It doesn't go away.
no.
It's just now our life is different than it was before this happened. Right? Like, no, we turned a page and we're in this part of the book now. It doesn't change. And we had some, I love our people, but we had some crazy, like, no, you need to escape the hospital and go do this thing, and I'll bring you this crystal, or I'll bring you this. I'm like, stop calling me. Like, do you really think that I didn't think of all the things, or try all the things, or do all the research, or we didn't do all of the things? This is a rapidly progressing situation,
Mm,
and a lot of holistic treatments and support take lots of time to be effective, and we do not have time.
right. Yeah,
And
time and time, money, all of those things. And unsolicited advice is a lot. It's a lot. Like,
ooh,
was there like a phrase that you said? Was there like,
you know what I finally, I'm like, I was kind of tapped out on everything. What I actually did was I stopped answering the phone, and I dedicated a person to be my point person for calls.
mm,
I would just text the phone number to them, and then they would hook them into our Facebook group. So we set up a family Facebook group that was private, and all updates, comments, and information went through there, and I just stopped answering the phone. I did not have the emotional stamina to deal with other people's processing their experience of my partner's illness.
right. Well, it's good for you for setting the like realizing that it was affecting you and setting a boundary and a process to manage
Well,
it.
it's funny, is like I was sitting there with my wife. She's like, she's just had brain cancer, or brain tumor removal. It was like shortly after the surgery, and she's really loaded because they gave her a lot of pain medications. So, and I'm like so frustrated. She's like, honey, what's going on? And I'm like, I'm about to set all of our relationships on fire.
Yeah, it's you and me on an island. Hope you're ready for it.
Like, she's like,
Aw.
maybe let's not do that. Can we find a solution? I'm like, okay. I will call our friends. I'll call like our core support people and see if they have any ideas. So that was a great solution. I mean, Facebook isn't great for everyone, especially now. I mean, it's been 10 years, right?
Right.
But the having a private, free online group where I could post, there was a story feed.
Mm.
I would put pictures whenever we felt up to it. I would post pictures and updates, and
And you could read the comments and stuff if you wanted to, or just
or
completely
not.
not, or not. And there's also a site, just to mention it for those that are listening, caringbridge.org is a nonprofit that
I
is
didn't, you know
very,
what
didn't,
yeah,
you might not have known
we
about it.
tried it then. I didn't love the way its interaction, but I haven't looked at it in 10 years.
Yeah. And Facebook is definitely like, people know Facebook, for the most part. But I like that you did a private group, because sometimes I think, you can put it on your regular news feed and it's like, it's a lot. It's a lot for like, the people who aren't in your inner circle.
Yeah.
And they might miss something. So you talk about how Cyndi's a delicate pansy. And that, even when you had the majority of the responsibilities, you wanted to support her independence at the various stages. Like, what did that look like? I'm curious.
So, like, currently, she's been teaching at the school that we purchased in September since 1995.
It's a massage
Yes.
education. Yeah.
and there's a lot of like complex things to teach, and a lot of theories and ways we approach things, and it's I have these moments of being like, when she's having a bad day with her vertigo, I have moments of being like terrified to leave her alone, just because I'm like, okay, she's got to go out and be a grown up and be an adult human who does not have me hovering. Like, she's got to go teach her class and do the thing, right? And part of the reason that we took over the school was because this has been her home and her experience and identity for decades, and it's, to some extent, this is where she feels the most herself.
Yeah.
Doing body work and teaching body work is the thing that she feels the most herself. And the thing that's interesting about it too is like integrating movement and touch with the things that she's teaching has helped her recover memory stuff better than a lot of the other things, like having a multisensory experience.
Yeah, makes
Seems
sense. I mean, hand-eye
Right.
coordination, like all those things, and
Yeah.
aromatherapy. It makes,
Mhm.
yeah.
I
It's like
noticed.
it's part of her therapy and her
Yeah, and
career.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, this is great. We'll continue to do that, but it's also like I have such a hard time. Like, I had to teach her how to walk again. Like, we had to get back like through that. Like, she couldn't walk for a while. She was in bed for 2 years. Like, it's a whole thing. Like, letting her go off into the world. Like, the first time she drove somewhere, I was like, don't panic.
Your
I'm
baby
just gonna be
bird leaving
home.
the nest. Like, and you're obviously this when she got a diagnosis, you got a diagnosis. I say like
Yeah.
you're her person, like her
Yeah.
lifeline in so many ways. Like, where did you find support, Sabrina, for you?
It's funny. I have a couple of really like I have a couple of friends that really stuck through and were a part of this with me. Like they took point on navigating our fundraising and doing all of these different things and coordinating people and like helping me just do things. And then her brother-in-law, or my brother-in-law, her brother, he's a nurse, and he like whenever he and his partner could come here and show up, they would fly out and stay for a while because they're
Nice.
in Massachusetts. We're in Los Angeles.
Okay.
So, when he had a break or his partner had a break, because his partner was a teacher at the time, he would, when he had a school break, he'd come out and just help us so we could get a break. And she had a few instances where she was having vasovagal syncope, so she was collapsing, which is terrifying.
Yes, I witnessed a syncope episode one time, and it's frightening.
It,
Now every time that person coughs, I'm like, oh no, they're gonna,
right?
yeah.
Like
Which,
I'm
if you
having,
don't know what that is, it basically means they pass out,
yeah,
right? And they like something
the blood
happens,
blood
something,
pressure drops profoundly.
yeah,
Like that, she's used to me like talking about all this stuff, but like she was going to the bathroom and it was like she fell off the toilet, passed out because the pressure of just, and this is one of the things of like your body changes pressure when it focuses on moving blood. So her blood pressure was so completely dysregulated because of the way the radiation affected her brainstem that even just going to the bathroom was dangerous. And so there was a point where like I wasn't sleeping, and a whole bunch of our friends were like, I will take Tuesdays. I'm going to come and I will sit with you. I will be there overnight. So there will be another person there so you can sleep.
yeah. There's like PTSD even, like
Oh,
so,
so
where you're like
bad.
you just something triggers that. I'm curious too, like backing up to the fundraising stuff, because like that is, I'm sure, something that people have to deal with. Like, what did you all find successful in raising your money?
So one of the things that we had a massive event within the, like she had just had her surgery, so it was within the month of being diagnosed. We have a lot of creative friends. We live in an artist colony, and I'm a creative in general. I'm a painter and a sculptor, but I was doing my soap company at the time. So all of my staff at the soap company, everyone that our community, basically everyone put a big call out for donations, and we did a
Mm,
massive silent auction that was done all hosted online. And
nice.
then we did an event that was like all the silent auction items were at the event. So one of our neighbors donated their loft space for us to do that in. Another neighbor donated their taco truck to feed everyone.
Beautiful.
And then a bunch of our musician friends came and performed, and everybody just, it was open to everyone in the community. So everybody just, and they invited all their friends invited their friends. We had several hundred people show up, which
Nice.
was amazing. And we sold just tons of like, it was beautiful paintings and stuff that showed up. It was really a little overwhelming and a lot to process emotionally. I was
Hmm.
really, really glad that my friends were heading it because I did not have the, like, again, it's like I only have so much emotional capacity.
Yes, it's like then this is happening. It's like
Yeah.
you're just coping with the grief of like,
Mhm.
the
And also
your
like
partner's brain.
the good
Hmm.
things are draining, you know?
Hmm.
And that was the thing where I was like, okay, so I know I should be really happy and excited and I should socialize, but I can't, I'm starting to have an anxiety attack. I can't
Hmm.
with anymore. So like I talked to, the people that were organizing, and I'm like, I don't know if we can stay for more than like 45 minutes. I know it's a 6-hour day, but we don't have it.
Yeah. Good.
So
I'm glad that you said something. And I'm glad that they showed up for you, your
yeah,
community. Amazing. And your job and Cindy's job too, is like teaching these massage therapy students how to best care and hold space for people who are their clients frankly, that could be experiencing similar things or chronic illness or major life transitions and milestones. Like how has this informed how you educate your?
I think that's my favorite thing about the gift that came out of us doing that, going through that. It's like yesterday I had a conversation with one of my students. So she graduated years ago and she called me and she's like, okay, so I have this client who, she fell and hit her head yesterday. And I'm like, okay, so, healthy, not healthy, what's going on? And we went through this whole conversation. She's like, well, she has she has a genetic disorder that's like a long-term progressive slow decline, or she has a muscle wasting issue.
Okay.
And I'm like, okay, so falls are going to be part of her life. So why don't you find a strategy for how you're going to work with her? Like, let's talk this through and let's find a strategy, because you don't want her to feel like she can't receive this care she desperately needs, because she'll stop telling you when she fell.
Yeah. And then make her confident that like, hey, this is
Right.
going to happen. Let's figure out how to mitigate it and
Exactly. Like, this is going to
recover.
be part of her life. So these are the things that are high risk if you have had an injury. When you have a chronic stuff, these are the massage tools you use to allow them to still have touch. Because when you have chronic illness, a lot of the time you stop being a person, you're a patient.
Mm.
And being touched in a way that is about you feeling good in your body is so rare when you have something chronic. It is so precious that, the things that are high risk with that, like there's a risk of spreading clots if you have an injury, right? So we don't want anyone to stroke out, so we change the tools we use. We do different things. We don't do anything that's going to move fluid, right?
Like, what would
So
you use? I'm just curious.
compressions, stretching,
Okay.
moving and jostling the body, doing things that are, rather than big flushing strokes, because
Okay.
that moves fluid. We change our approach in how we're handling that. We'll do a little myofascial work, which means we're stretching the fascia, try and address what the complaints are, but also just being with the person in a way that's about them feeling good in their body is such a gift when you have a chronic issue,
Mm.
that it really affects your mental health if you don't get those things when you're looking forward to it.
Interesting. If people like they're not masseuse or massage therapists, like what are some things that maybe we could do at home to kind of bring some of those tools in for ourselves as
Mhm.
caregivers or for our care partners?
One of the things that I think is important first is always the idea of consent-driven touch, and having, especially when you have an illness, because you feel like in a lot of ways you lose the right to say, no, I don't want to be touched that way, because you have to have these things done because you're in a medical situation. And
Right.
like just even watching like some of the things that happened with my wife, like she was really, because she teaches this, she's very particular about like, don't touch me unless you say hello. You
Or
don't get
use
to
my
touch me.
name, like my first name
But
or
if you don't
yeah.
acknowledge that I'm a person here, like don't just come in and start touching me. She was very, very particular about that. And she got, and some of the nurses got it and some of them were annoyed because they have very limited time. But she's like, I want to see your name. Can you flip over your card? Who are you? Don't just come in and touch me without like acknowledging I'm a person. So the idea of consent and the setting up a designated time to do a thing. So the idea is like, okay, so we're going to shift from the idea of like, okay, I'm getting you dressed, I'm doing like life things, because you get lost in that, to I want to take some time to, I'm just going to put my hands on your low back. Like if you're lying down, I'll put my hand under your low back, my other hand on your belly, and we're just going to sit for a little bit. And I'm
Mm.
just going to let the warmth of my hands soften your back and just be with you just as a person. You don't have to know how to do particular things. It's just having the intention of touching a person as you're a person I care about and I want to be present with.
Mm.
That is so valuable. And it allows you to slow down and be present with this person that you've committed to care for.
Right, right.
You
Especially
know?
because you have a, relationship. How did it change your partner, your relationship with your wife? Like what caregiving does become sometimes so transactional, like you're
Oh yeah.
doing these things. What did you do to kind of be intentional about maintaining that relationship? outside?
I think that's been one of the hardest parts about going through this. And I know, like, I've talked to other caregivers, it's a similar thing. It's like, she and I had a conversation a little while ago about there are certain things because she's better. She has short-term memory loss from a lot of it. Um, so, we work on strategies for her to be able to be as independent as possible without me having to worry about stuff. And I have to intentionally let go and let her be an adult human who makes mistakes or doesn't. And I'm not responsible for all of those things because she is capable in many ways, and some days less capable than others. But it's, this is being an adult human.
Yeah, it's can be hard. It's easier said than done. Even,
Yeah.
caring for parents and things like watching people do make different choices, navigate
Yeah.
things differently. It's hard. And it's been 10 years, since all
Mhm.
this has happened for you, Sabrina. Like how have did you experience caregiver burnout? You
Oh
know,
yeah, I still fight with that. Like, that's a hard thing,
yeah.
especially
What were
because,
some of the signs for you that you were like, oh, I'm not Sabrina like she used to be?
you know, especially because like lately, I'm noticing this a lot lately as we're looking at, shifting how we go about living our life. Like, before all this happened, part of the reason we moved into the loft we're in is because there was a great big garden space. We're living downtown LA and there's a massive garden space. It was awesome. So I spent multiple years like setting that up, and I had a whole bunch of raised beds and I had chickens and I had this whole thing. And this is a key part of like my identity. And I'm at the point where I'm like, I really want to not do things. I want to downsize. I want to move into a smaller place. I want everything to be like, I want to be able to clean my entire house in half a day and like really clean it. I don't want this massive loft anymore. Like, the idea of like the things that were so key to my identity. I'm an artist. I'm an urban farmer. I'm all of these things. Those things are, I'm choosing ease in my life because my partner and our relationship and what we make together is more important to me than those things that were part of my identity.
Right.
But that has been a really hard process to work through,
Yeah.
and this is also it's part of aging too. I mean, I'm 51 this year, and I'm like, okay, I had to have my knee replaced 2 years ago. It was amazing to have her have an opportunity to care for me.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah.
that
How'd
was
she do?
Oh,
What
she
was her?
did great.
Okay,
She
good.
did great.
Well, you've
She
showed her how it's done for many,
Yeah,
many
but
years.
well, and we happen to have all of the medical equipment already, so it was
There you go.
we've got all the accessories. But she did an amazing job, and she was so good with me, and like our friends stepped in and helped her and helped take care of things and stuff. And the things that she couldn't do, I could take care of. But
Hmm.
realizing my priorities have shifted, and part of my priorities shifting are because I'm a little fried, frankly, from having to manage our life to the extent that I do.
Yeah.
And I'm back to work. This caregiving's not my full-time job. It's
Right.
been last 5 years or so. I'm full-time work. We went through a pandemic, and now we bought this company, and I'm full-time, 6, 7, sometimes more days a week.
Yeah. Working caregiver, like that adds another
Yeah.
whole layer of things, which, you know, I don't, for me, it was a little bit of I knew how to do that. Like, it's a little bit of a like, oh, I know how to do this. You can kind of separate it in the box. And I totally get what you're saying about the identity shifting. I mean, I just craved less to take care of. Like, I want
Yeah.
less. Like, how can
That
I
is that
simplify
has
my
been
life?
my mantra for the last few
Yes.
months. I'm like, I can't. I don't have room for that. No. Whatever it is, I don't need it. Like, I'm purging and selling things right now because I'm like, I want to reconsider where we live. I want to reconsider everything. I want what can be the least amount of effort on everything, because I
Yeah.
have to put energy here. This is the priority. Everything else gets shunted off. I'm done.
Right. Right.
And that's been a really interesting personality change. But I mean, we went through, I think at that probably the 8-year mark, I was like, I had a really big identity crisis around that, because I was like, what am I doing? Where is my life? Like, I've spent my entire life with the idea of like, I want to be a working artist. I want all of these things. And I'm like, our life and the things that are key to our survival take up so much more energy than someone who has, is two partners who are healthy.
Mhm.
So I need to prioritize, like, first we have to survive and function. And then
Yeah,
the
keep
other,
the lights on, I call it. We're just gonna keep the lights on. Like, yeah.
right, right.
Yeah.
We just want to at least, I want to eat. I want to know we can take care of our basics. And I want to not be resentful because there is so much to care for that, like, washing the dishes feels like too much.
Right.
Right. So how can I get to the point where dealing with our basic life is not so draining that I can't function? Because I realized I was like starting to dislike we've lived in our loft for 13 years. I love it. It's beautiful. We've always said, like, we just want to live here till we die. We love this place so much. We love the community. We love the area. It's amazing. But I realized, like, I can't keep up with caring for it.
Right.
It's huge, and we are no longer as active in our massage businesses as we were. We were looking at creating a wellness center over across town. And, I had there were a few days where, like, she fell, she's got vertigo, she falls. And in LA, like, if you're on one side of town and the person's on the other side of town, that's like sometimes a 90-minute drive to get there.
Right.
And my nervous system can't handle the stress of, like, do I need to get her to the hospital that is now on the side of town I'm on right now that she is not
Right.
on?
Right. I
Right?
mean, I think especially because you were always like for caregivers are always kind of close to that crisis. Like you'd never really fully recover. And so it's just like
Right.
you're living in this
Yeah.
always on state where you just never, you're just kind of waiting for the other shoe to drop in a lot of ways. It's very real. Like, what would you tell somebody, Sabrina, who's like back where you were, 2 years in, 1 year in, and now you're this seasoned, you know, caregiver of somebody who still needs care.
Mhm.
But you have kind of learned a lot in this time. Like, what would you pass on to that person?
I think the biggest thing, honestly, is everything you're feeling is real, you know? And you feel absolutely everything you can feel. You're going to feel all of it all at the same time some days. And you have to survive from day to day. I just put this on my wall here the other day. I'm like, you have survived 100% of your worst days,
Yes.
you
High
know?
five. Yeah, good job.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've survived 100% of my very worst days. And some days survival is the best you can ask for. You
Yeah.
get up and do it again tomorrow, you know? And all of the little things that you thought were important are not as important as surviving to the next day.
Mm.
So just let it go. Doesn't matter if your floors are dirty or your dishes aren't done or your laundry's not done. Did you make it through the day? And it's funny because it's like I was just telling one of my students about this the other day. We had this moment where, like, I refuse to judge whatever it is someone's doing to get through being a caregiver. Like, there was a period of time because of the way that my wife's capacity to taste was affected by the radiation, that, like, the only thing she would or could eat was a Subway veggie sandwich of very specific things, very specific bread. It was the only thing she would eat, and she was eating so rarely that I was just so excited that she would put something in her mouth. I'm like, I don't want to hear about it. I don't care if it's GMO, whatever, or whatever. I'm like, I don't care.
Yeah.
There's food in her mouth. And that's what's important today. Tomorrow we can figure out if we're making her homemade bone broth, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I was that person. I'm like, I'm urban farming and making bone broth and blah 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 and doing all those things. And I'm like, I give up. Like, what's most important is there's something in her body. And we are surviving till tomorrow. And tomorrow we can try something else if we have the capacity. It may not be for several weeks or a couple of years, but for right now, we have to get to the next day. So I
Yeah.
will never judge anyone. Like, I'm sorry if McDonald's is the only thing your person is going to eat, like, great. Okay, make it to tomorrow.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's a big statement, coming from the
Yeah.
previous Sabrina to,
Oh God, it
but
was so hard. And there was so much judgment. Like, how could you possibly feed her something that wasn't organic? Like, you know that that could cause cancer and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what will be worse is if she dies because she starves.
Yeah.
That would suck.
Yes.
Okay. So like what's most important right now is this is the only thing she can stomach or eat or sounds appealing. And I'm just trying to keep water and anything in her body. We will judge about all of the other stuff later when we can get to the point where she can actually keep
Yeah.
something else down.
Yeah. And same for you too, as a
Yeah.
caregiver. You're like, you're like,
Mhm.
listen, when you're tired and you're like at the end of, at the end of all that, like there's, yeah, no judgment, which is why like this podcast only spotlights people who are living in the trenches, because I don't want somebody to come on and spout something that's like, no, you haven't lived it.
Yeah.
We don't have space for you here. Yeah.
Like don't judge, like you are surviving, and if you make it through today, you have more opportunity to do something else tomorrow. But there's nothing wrong or bad about what you had to do to survive,
Mm,
you know? And that's the biggest thing for me is like, yeah, there's all of these like aspirational things and this stuff. Like, yes, I would love to do yoga every day and I would love to all of these things. And I'd love to go back to being the person who like grew their own food and made bone broth every day. That would be amazing. I had a lot more time.
yeah.
You know, I had a lot more capacity. I had a lot more energy. I was 10 years younger, you know, and there's all sorts of stuff that like that person would have been horrified when I first started going through all of this of like, no, I get to the point of such desperation of like, please just eat anything,
Right.
you know, and it was like such an exciting moment to see her like just take a bite of something. I was like, I sat there crying. I'm like, oh my God, we found something. And I'm like that's like, I refuse to judge, you
Good.
know?
Yeah.
You
People need
just,
to hear that. I mean, I think this is, that's this message will fall on something that's probably beating themselves up, for like,
yeah. Yeah, and you just can't. You have to make it through when you have more capacity and you have more resource and you have more room
right.
and everything, great. You know, the other thing too is I always tell people who are like, "Oh, how can I actually help someone?" Like my friends who I like, they're the first person who's had a baby in their group, right? Like, holy cow, like being a newborn parent is like that's like going through like the first year of cancer. It just is. Like it's draining, it's exhausting, it's all encompassing.
There's no
There's so many
crystal
things,
ball, like you just,
right?
yeah, you're
And
on
every
demand.
every child is different, you
Hmm.
know. So like even if you have one, you don't know what how this one's gonna be. And you know, I'm a birth doula, so I spend a lot of time with people who just had babies.
Love that.
And I'm always like, look, if I show up to visit you, like, can I help you do your dishes? Or can like, you know, can I bring you something? Do you need furniture or whatever? Like, our community has a constant rotation of like random furniture. Do you need anything? But like, tell the people in your life if you want to come visit, I need you to do a load of laundry. I need you to do a load of dishes. I don't need you to hold my baby because that's the only thing I can really do right now because I'm in recovery from having a major physical body event.
Well said. Well said. And then to use your voice to really say what you really, really, really need. It's hard. It's hard for people to do that. And yet it's so necessary because you
Well,
can't, your life was already full before
yeah.
all of these things. And then it's like you get to decide what's spilling over the plate,
Mhm.
you choose.
Yeah. I
Beautiful.
mean, it's the same with caregivers. It's like, it's so hard to admit you need help because it feels like you don't have your shit together, is how it
Yeah.
feels,
Yeah.
right? It's like, oh no, I'm somehow failing at this. No, you're human. And we need our community. We need people to show up and say, I'm going to sit next to you so you can sleep. You
Yeah.
know, we need someone who's going to show up and be like, you don't need to talk to me. I know you're exhausted. I'm just going to do your dishes.
Right.
Brought dinner. You don't need to talk to me. Like that was so soothing to just have another adult person in the house so I didn't have to be anxious all the time that if something happened, because we live in a weird complex. It's poorly marked. When I call an ambulance, I had to call the security office also on a different phone and tell them to go find the ambulance and direct them to us because they
Mm,
couldn't find us. Like the additional stress of like trying to navigate safety stuff is like just so hard, right? And it's like the idea of like, no, there's another adult human that's going to be here and who's like, I've got you. You
mm,
can have a minute to
yeah.
breathe. It's like so powerful. And you don't have to have as much like stressful stuff as what we went through. It's like everyone needs that.
Yeah.
You need a
Well,
minute to lean on someone else and be like, I just need to breathe for a minute because this is crazy and hard.
yeah. And that is what self-care looks like as caregivers,
Mhm.
is asking for help. And you mentioned setting boundaries earlier, and really for anybody, but particularly for caregivers, I think, people think it's like exercise. And I'm like, no, it's not that. It's all of that. It's the fundraising you did for your financial self-care. It's like all of that, all of those pieces together. So that you can just have that breathing space of what that looks like. So thank you for sharing all of that. I would love to get your thoughts on some of the prompts in the
Oh yeah,
self-care
totally.
journal. So this is a book that I wrote to help prioritize. I had to learn it for
Yeah.
myself, and then hopefully, people can try on and see what's working for them. But I would love, what's a life accomplishment, Sabrina, that makes you proud of yourself?
Honestly, that my relationship has lasted as long as it has. Like we're going on 20 years and
Wow.
that feels really good. Like it's funny because it's like I always think about what other things are there, but like really like that we still like each other.
Yeah. It's easy to say you love someone, but do you like them? I
No,
know.
we still really like each other. Like we like to hang out together and we like despite everything that's been challenging and stuff, like we still like each other. I think that that's like the
Mhm.
greatest accomplishment I've got going.
Nice, nice. How do you cope with a difficult day now?
Um, the I've survived 100% of my worst days is my mantra.
Yep.
And if I need to just stop and shut down, then I just do now. Because I'm like pushing myself and trying to like I just torture everyone around me when I'm grouchy. Like why? It helps no one. Just be like, I'm gonna tap out today. Like I need to go back to bed. Also, the if I hate everyone, I probably need to eat. And if I think
Yeah.
everyone hates me, I need a nap.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's funny because it's like that's a rule for toddlers, right? Where you're like, oh, do you hate everyone? It's probably time for it. But it works for adults too. That never changes.
Right. No, no, especially if you've been in a relationship a long time with people like
Mhm.
you get to know for sure. Okay, you couldn't imagine a world without dot 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 something.
Um, I'm gonna say body work, honestly. Like
And is
that
body work mean more than massage, or is that same thing? Like in my
it's a lot of different. I think we refer to what we do as body work because there's a whole bunch of different techniques that we incorporate. Some of it can be like you can be fully clothed and we can compress and stretch and move your body. It's the idea of part of the reason I got into massage is because I learned a lot about failure to thrive.
Mm,
And failure to thrive really comes from not being touched enough. We have the chemical response babies have from being held by their parent, the release of oxytocin with parent and child. That mechanism happens for our whole lives. When I got into bodywork school, I was like, for the first time in my life, because being in massage school, you get 4 or 5 massages a week, which is amazing. Never felt so good.
yeah.
But what I realized was for the first time in my life, I felt full. And I
Mm,
realized I was making emotional decisions from a place of feeling satiated rather than needy. And body work is one of those things that helps people cope with those things. And I found that I exited unhealthy relationships. I made better emotional decisions. So the more consistently I get body work, the more resourced I feel. So
right. It's energizing too. Like
mhm.
it sounds like for everybody. Okay, because I know you love or your identity of gardening. Describe the ingredients in your favorite salad.
I love a chunky salad. Like I love like the salads for me are like yes, there's mixed greens, but I love garbanzo beans and cannellini beans and chunky chopped peppers and
Mm,
Persian cucumbers and just all sorts of any sort of vegetable that's in season that smells really good right now. Green onions, and we do a lot of olive oil with a balsamic reduction, like a
mm,
balsamic glaze, and then
no.
just toss everything in that. I'm like, I could just sit and eat a whole bowl of that. So
I don't know
yeah.
why everybody's salad's always better when someone else makes it, I feel like, but there's
My wife
something to that.
makes this Italian summer salad that's like she's so funny because she like holds on to these recipes for like decades and then she busts them out and she's like, last year it was the summer salad. I'm like, babe, you've known how to do this all along. And she's like, look, I'm playing a long game. I've got to keep you interested.
Yeah. Oh,
So every so often I'm gonna bust out something new.
yep. Keep it fresh and interesting.
Just so good. Like hers is all like sausages and cheese and peppers and stuff. And it was like a chunky
A hearty.
with
Yeah.
pasta because she's Italian.
I love it.
Yeah.
Yes. I love it. I'm a better eater than I am a chef. So um that's nobody's gonna be like, oh, that Elizabeth, she really made something amazing.
Well,
No.
we work out well because we love to cook, so we love people who like to eat. So that makes us very happy because I can't
Yes.
eat small anything.
Perfect. Perfect. Well, is there anything else, Sabrina, that you wish that we talked about, or do you have any like parting words for people listening?
Um, I mean, the most I think the most important thing is to just be gentle with yourself and the people around you. You know, we come up with the idea of having a lot of expectations for how we think things should be, and they never are. But some days they're better than they were, some days they're worse. But the reality is like life is what happens while you're laying out your plans and expectations, you know? And being present with where you're at is what helps you find the joy in those days,
Yeah.
especially when they're hard.
Yep. Yep. Good. Well said. Well said. How do people stay in touch or learn more about you and the resources, Sabrina?
The best way to get in touch with me is our school. So the website is ipsb.com. And my email is just sabrina@ipsb.com.
Okay. Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for just,
You're so welcome.
sharing your wisdom of what you've learned and what you're still working on, and that you don't necessarily have it all figured out, and that you're still, trying to give yourself grace, and hopefully teaching the other people, in your school, in your community, kind of educate them about caregiving and what that's really like. So thank you for being you.
Thank you for having us here.
Take care.
You too.